welcome back to Reclaim You. This is an exciting day. Today is the last episode of the first year of
What?
our podcast.
Wow, so exciting.
I know. So this is episode 51. So that would mean after this, it's a full year of the Reclaim You podcast.
Very excited.
It is
Doesn't feel like
exciting.
a year. It's a
I
fast
know.
year.
It was a fast year. Emily and I were just talking about if we just start a season 2 after this episode or how this works. We're not sure.
Uncharted territory. Yeah.
I know. We made it a full year. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I know that we have like thousands and thousands of downloads, which is exciting. And yeah, next year we'll keep chipping away, doing the thing.
Cool.
So what's up? How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Loving this spring, I guess like summer weather. I feel like we skipped spring, but I'm here for it. So
We did. It was hot out there yesterday. It was almost 90.
it was. I don't mind it this early though.
Mhm.
As the summer goes on, I get tired of it, but this early I'm like, okay, I'm outside.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to wear a jacket anymore. Go for walks and the sun's out. And
Totally. I clearly, if anyone's watching YouTube, forgot to put sunscreen on my shoulders the other day on Sunday. Yeah. The kids got all the sunscreen. I failed to help my shoulders and they are quite burned. So lesson learned. I get one lesson a year and it always sticks. So
yeah, I didn't get mine yet, but it always happens.
it always happens. Take care of your skin.
Wear your sunscreen.
Yes. Yes. So today, Emily and I thought it would be kind of fun to share some tips about starting therapy that might be supportive as, if you're looking for a therapist, if you're starting with a new therapist, just some things to keep in mind to help guide you and hopefully help you find the right fit, because the right fit is the most important part.
Yes. Always get, some nervousness from new clients, especially clients who have never seen a therapist before, just not really knowing, what is this supposed to look like? What am I supposed to ask you? What are sessions going to look like? And it's totally overwhelming. So hopefully we can give some helpful tips if you're in that boat and want to start working with a therapist.
Totally. So let's start with finding a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
How to find a therapist. It feels like in theory, right? How do you find a therapist, right? Should be easy, but also not necessarily so easy, depending on what you're looking for.
There's a lot of information out there. So obviously, I think most people find a therapist through Google or some kind of search on the internet. Obviously, there's word of mouth and stuff like that too, which I think can be helpful if you hear from a friend or family member that you trust of hey, this person was recommended, or I've worked with this person, blah, blah, blah. That can sometimes take some anxiety away. But I think most people find a therapist by searching. So I think what's helpful, so that you're not just searching therapists near me, get specific. So what do you want to work on? Is there a specialty? Do you want a trauma therapist? Do you want an eating disorder therapist? Do you want a therapist that is EMDR trained, or a somatic therapist? Get as specific as possible. So that way it's not just thousands of therapists that you then need to weed through to be okay, do they specialize in what I want to work on or not? So Google can be really helpful for that. Psychology Today, the therapist finder, is also really helpful. You can put in, what you want to work on, modalities, if you prefer, location, age, things like that. If you have specific preferences, and they kind of help to narrow it down for you. So I think that that's a helpful place to start. Get specific, and then read bios. All therapists should have a comprehensive bio that tell you about them, what they specialize in, different modalities that they're trained in. So once you kind of get that list, start reading and see what stands out to you.
And I think from the Work With Me pages or the bios, I think this is where social media can be helpful, because it can give you another peek into people's vibe, right? So if you're on their social media and you're watching their stories and you're like, oh, this person is kind of annoying, they might not be the therapist for you.
Yeah.
Or if they say things that don't align with your value system, probably not the right fit for you. So it's use social media. A lot of people do find therapists on social media because it has become kind of like a search engine, I guess. But I think that can be hard too, because some people like to see a peek into their therapist's life. Other people find it like really weird and kind of invasive and like awkward. So it's like those are other little things I think to consider as you're Googling and then finding people online in other spaces. Do that internal resonance check.
Yeah. Yeah. Like think about things that you value in your own relationships because, it's a professional relationship, but you have a relationship with your therapist and you want to make sure that you have those qualities and relationships that feel really solid in your life in your relationship with your therapist.
Yeah.
So exactly like what you were saying, like, do you want someone that's more open, more vulnerable? Do you value humor? Do you want someone with like lived experience? Like, what are those qualities that you want in
Yeah.
that relationship?
And I think this is where the initial consultation can be helpful in some ways. Most therapy practices offer a free consultation to get your questions answered, to learn more about the practice or the therapist. And that kind of like, does this person or do these people do the work that I'm looking to do? And you can kind of take it from there. So maybe let's talk about those consultation calls.
Yeah, yeah. So with the consultation, obviously, whoever you're having the consultation with will probably have some questions for you, like how maybe how you found them, things that you're looking to work on, like what your schedule looks like. They'll go over finances, things like that. But on your end, I think that it's always helpful to ask questions about your therapist. So ask about their background, ask about their training, their education, what do they specialize in? Where did they get that training? Are they going to be able to help you with the things that you want to work on? Is probably the number one question to focus on in a consultation.
Yeah.
I think it's also helpful to then ask questions about more of like the not so fun things to talk about. So like the scheduling, prices, things like that. It's always a good idea to make sure that that's a good fit before you commit to anything. Those I think are the big two that are coming to mind that are most helpful to ask in a consultation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's important too that, if you're looking for a particular type of work, so like our practice, we specialize in treating eating disorders and trauma. So, we make that very abundantly clear on our website and where we show up on the internet so that when people call, they know that's what we do. And that doesn't mean that we're going to work with every single person that calls because we might not be the best fit for a particular client and their needs, right? So, I mean, for example, if someone calls and they're looking for eating disorder treatment for their 8-year-old, we are not going to see that person. I'm going to provide them with, other referrals for people who specialize in seeing kids because it's important to us in our value system that we're working with people who we know we can serve really well. So asking questions like that, like, in your practice, do you see a lot of kids who are 8? And that's maybe not the greatest example, but this like particular issue or age or whatever, getting some feedback from the therapist or the practice owner or the person doing consultations just to know that you have landed in the best place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're totally right. Not all therapists specialize or feel comfortable working with certain populations, and that's totally normal. That's totally okay. And if they don't specialize or feel like totally competent in that area, like being able to then be like, okay, like can you maybe give me some referrals or like some direction on how I can find someone who would be a better fit for me.
Yeah, and people should be more than happy to do that too. I know
Yeah.
that I do it all the time. And I think too, with consults, in our practice, I do the majority of the consults, and it works out pretty well just because I feel like I know the clinicians in the practice and the work that they do and who would be a good fit with who. And I think generally speaking, knock on wood, I have a solid like gut instinct on that. But if someone really wants to speak with a clinician before working with them, I think that that's totally fine as well, because this is an investment in you. And like I said, the relationship is the most important part, and making sure that it's a good fit feels
Yeah,
just like at the utmost importance.
absolutely.
And then there's the insurance thing, right? The
Yeah.
This is a This is a toughie. The insurance thing of, if you're looking to use your insurance, which, of course we understand when people need to use their insurance or want to use their insurance versus paying privately and using your out of network benefits. So this is also a really important question to ask with the nitty gritty, maybe not so fun stuff. If you're looking for a specialized practice, the chances are they're going to be out of network. And so asking questions about how people handle billing, what their fees are, if they have sliding scale spots, how long people can stay in sliding scale spots, if that's reassessed, or, if there's a scholarship fund, all of these different types of questions to make sure that you're entering into a relationship that's going to be able to stick and is not going to stress you out financially even more than maybe you are already.
And understanding too, if you have out of network benefits, that can always be helpful. And I think, people sometimes have them and they don't even know that they have them.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that, either we can check or you can call your insurance beforehand and see if you could get any reimbursement for sessions. That can always be a super helpful thing to look into because it can open up who you can see and take some of that financial pressure off.
Yeah, and a lot of times I have people send me a picture of their insurance card and I'll log into a system and see what their out of network coverage is so that they know off the bat that, maybe they have $1,000 deductible. So you have to pay $1,000 out of pocket, but then you get reimbursed 80% of session costs. So at the end, after the $1,000, it's almost like a copay that you're paying each week. So it can super, super help with the financial side of things.
For sure.
Okay, so you find the therapist, you do the consultation, you can afford it, and what comes next as you're getting ready to go to that first appointment? What are some tips?
So for the first appointment, I think that it's always helpful to think through, okay, what do I want my therapist to know about me right off the bat? What feels important for them to understand about me as a person or things that I've been through? So kind of understanding what you really want them to know in that first session. And, it doesn't have to be more than you're comfortable with. Like definitely make sure that you're not pushing yourself too much in that area. Like that will come as you build the relationship. But I always do think that that's a helpful thing to think about. Think about some goals. Like what are the goals that you want to work towards? Or do you need help with goals? Either way, your therapist wants you to make the most out of your time, wants to make sure that you work towards those goals. So no right or wrong. If you have goals, if you need help making some goals, definitely let your therapist know that in the first session.
Because that can be overwhelming, right? Like thinking of concrete goals when you just feel like shit. So if you just feel like shit and you're like, I don't know how to set goals, like that's a great first thing to start to work on is,
Totally.
How do you set goals while feeling like shit? And then
Totally.
hopefully not feeling like shit for much longer.
Yeah. Absolutely. And knowing, we don't have to go crazy with goals. Like maybe the goal is just to get to know each other for a while.
Yeah.
Or we just want to set one goal. It's not like we have to set like 10 goals and get overwhelmed or anything like that. It can definitely start a small goal, a manageable goal, and it's absolutely collaborative too. I also think it can be really helpful for folks that have been in therapy before. And it's something that I always like to know. What have you liked about past therapists? What has worked for you? What has been helpful? And what have you not liked? Were there qualities about the therapist that like rubbed you the wrong way? Were there things that you did that you were like, okay, this is stupid or like didn't help at all? I think that that's super helpful to go over in the first session because if there's things that you already know are helpful, like let's lean into that. And if there's things that aren't helpful or that you don't like, I want to make sure that I don't do those things.
And then if I do, how you like to repair when I misstep or piss you off or whatever it is. I'm always thinking of that too.
I think it can be helpful too in the first session to talk about what you might need from your therapist too. And maybe that's something if you've been in therapy before, you might have an understanding of. Like, do you like to have a more structured session? Do you like to be able to just come in and kind of go with the flow. And that can also go in with like the fit of your therapist too. Some therapists are definitely more structured. Some are more go with the flow. But I do think that that can be a helpful thing to establish in the first session.
And then to reassess over time, because maybe you come in and you feel really like shit and you want a lot of maybe structure and tools and like homework even. And so like you engage in that and then maybe you feel a little bit better and you're feeling like you don't need as much of that containment. So things start to shift. So I think it comes back to that relationship early on, making sure you're a good fit. You feel like you can share openly and that like you can collaborate together to make the relationship and make the work together as, productive as possible for you, because it's all about you.
And my last tip for our first session, I love when clients ask me questions. So maybe spend some time thinking about questions that you want to ask your therapist in the first session.
What are your favorite questions?
Ooh. I mean, I feel like, I get a lot of the like, what's your background, things like that, which like can also be covered in the consultation. I like the more personal questions. Like I like when people ask me like, why did you get into this? Or like, what do you like to do when you're not being a therapist? Like I'm of the belief, you're sharing a lot of personal details. Like you should be able to know me as a person too in order to feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah, more of like a human to human relationship versus something else, right?
Yeah.
Any other tips that you have?
It's also okay if a couple sessions in, it's not feeling like the vibe. That is okay. It is okay to talk to your therapist about that. It's okay to email your therapist about that. If talking feels too overwhelming, I think that some people get nervous of getting in trouble or like getting pushback or something like that. A good therapist is not going to do that to you. They want you to feel comfortable. So if you are starting therapy for the first time or restarting therapy and you start with a therapist and it just doesn't feel like the fit after a couple sessions, let them know and ask them for help to find somebody that might be a better fit.
Yeah, because folks should be able to refer to other practices or maybe someone in the practice that you're in. Because at the end of the day, like we said, the most important thing to us is that you feel comfortable and safe. And we'll do what we can to do that. But sometimes it's just not a vibe, which is fine.
Or maybe your therapist can do more of something, less of something. It's also okay if you want to give it a little bit more of a shot, but just ask them for more of what you need. And then if that still doesn't work, then be like, okay, I want to try somebody else.
Well, I feel like this will be helpful for folks, who are looking for starting this work or, coming back to it. Yeah. Anything to add before we log off?
I feel like that covers it for things that are important to keep in mind or to ask when you want to start therapy. And it's a big step. And I'm proud of everyone listening to this who wants to start therapy. You're taking a big step.
And Emily has one opening right now. And it starts in a couple of weeks. I'm sure it will be gone by the time this podcast airs, actually. But if you're interested and it's still open, reach out and you can get started with Emily. Maybe if it's not gone by then. We'll see.
Or I'll have something else. You never know. It never hurts to reach out.
All right, everybody. We hope this is helpful. And we will be back next week for, I guess, the beginning of season 2 or the continuation of season 1. I guess I'll take a poll. Stay tuned, to be determined. Not sure how all this works. All right. We'll be back regardless. All right, everybody. Take good care.